Okay, the Sean Diddy Combs trials.
Right.
They've really been dominating headlines, haven't they?
Absolutely impossible to ignore.
And you might think, you've got the whole picture,
Yeah.
but with these high-profile cases, well, there's almost always more beneath the surface. So yeah, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into a really new and frankly challenging layer of the whole Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura legal situation.
Yeah, and we've got quite a stack of sources here to help us do that. We're looking at excerpts from a pretty revealing interview with Clayton Howard. He's also known as Dave. He's the one who just filed this new federal lawsuit.
Okay.
And we also have court documents, recent news reports, too, giving us different takes on everything.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive really is to pull out the most important bits of information, the key insights from all this material. We want to look at how this new lawsuit, well, how it clashes with the story we thought we knew. And what does it tell us about these really complex relationships, the alleged activities? I mean, it's a lot. Get ready for some pretty surprising stuff that might just make you rethink things.
Definitely. Okay, so first, maybe let's just quickly set the scene, remind ourselves where things stood.
Good idea.
So as of early July 2025, the jury in Diddy's federal trial, they reached a partial verdict.
Partial.
Yeah. He was actually acquitted on the big charges, racketeering and sex trafficking conspiracy.
Okay.
But found guilty on 2 counts of transporting people for prostitution and 2 counts of substantive sex trafficking.
So he's still in federal custody then?
Yes, currently waiting for sentencing. Could be up to 5.5 years, though, he's already done about 9 months.
And a huge part of that trial, maybe the central part, was Cassie Ventura's testimony. Really powerful stuff.
Absolutely. She described this, decade-long cycle of abuse and being forced into what she called these freak-offs.
Right, the drug-fueled sex parties. With male escorts involved, allegedly organized and even filmed by Combs.
Yeah, and she said some lasted for days. It was harrowing testimony.
And wasn't it corroborated? Weren't there other witnesses?
There were. A male escort, Daniel Phillip, testified. He said Cassie hired him, but Combs was allegedly watching and hitting Cassie during it. Phillip described her as, quote, shaking uncontrollably, just emotionally traumatized. And others, too, like an exotic dancer, Cherie the Punisher Hayes, also talked about being involved.
Okay, so that's the narrative, the picture most of us kind of had in our heads. Abuse, coercion, victimhood.
Pretty much, yeah.
But this is where it gets, well, really interesting. Or maybe deeply unsettling is a better word.
Because this new lawsuit flips things dramatically.
Exactly. A shocking new federal lawsuit filed in California. It's by this man, Clayton Howard, who goes by Dave.
And it's not just against Diddy. It names Cassie Ventura, Bad Boy Records, others too. It's a 49-page complaint filed June 30th, 2025, Central District of California. And it alleges this 8-year campaign of systematic sexual exploitation, trafficking, abuse, basically from around 2009 to maybe 2017, 2018.
And the key thing here, the part that really stands out, is how it directly challenges that idea of Cassie being solely a victim.
Completely. Dave's claims paint her as, well, an active participant, even manipulative.
Manipulative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Howard, and remember, he was mentioned in Diddy's trial, one of those 7 escorts whose travel Combs apparently paid for. He's claiming he was trafficked across state lines.
Okay.
And subjected to these drug-fueled freak-offs, but orchestrated, he says, by both Combs and Cassie.
Never them.
That's his allegation. And just to note, as of when we're talking early July 2025, neither Combs nor Cassie has publicly responded to these specific allegations in Howard's suit.
Okay, so it's a total narrative shift. Let's dive into some of the specifics then. What exactly is Dave alleging, especially about Cassie's role? This sounds wild.
It's incredibly detailed. He claims, for instance, that Cassie paid him for 8 years, paid him to be her, quote, male provider.
Her male provider for 8 years.
Yeah. Sometimes, he says, $5,000 an encounter. He even mentions getting $11,000 once for winning an orgy, apparently by outlasting Daniel Phillip for 2 straight days.
Winning an orgy. Okay, go on.
He describes being coerced, drugged, says it was high-potency ecstasy and manipulated by Cassie. Promises of money, gifts. And he alleges she coerced him into hours-long masturbation that actually caused him physical injuries. Scabbing, bleeding, he said.
It's graphic and disturbing.
Very. He also claims he got chlamydia from Cassie around 2015 or 2016 after unprotected sex.
Okay.
And there's another big one. He states she got pregnant by him and then terminated the pregnancy without telling him. He apparently talks more about this in a book he's writing called Cassie, Victim or Co-Conspirator, The Story of Dave.
A book? Wow, okay, the plot thickens. But the coercion claims, and now this. What about sexual assault? Did he make claims like that?
He did. Directly against Cassie. It's possibly one of the most disturbing allegations in the suit.
Okay.
He recounts this specific incident. Says she manipulated the setting, kept the room dark, and then forced herself onto him while she was menstruating. But he didn't know.
He didn't know she was menstruating.
No. He says he only realized when he saw blood everywhere after she'd orgasmed.
Oh my God.
And he says Diddy actually mediated the argument they had about it afterwards, gave him $5,000 to, calm down.
Diddy mediated that and paid him.
That's Dave's account. And he explicitly says Cassie lied about this specific incident during her testimony in Diddy's trial.
So he's directly contradicting her sworn testimony?
Directly. He argues Cassie wasn't just a victim. He uses the term co-conspirator.
Co-conspirator.
Yeah, he asserts she was genuinely into the whole swinger lifestyle, loved sex, called her insatiable. He believes she manipulated Diddy, was addicted to the money and the lifestyle, stayed with Diddy for her career, for the prestige.
So his view is she wasn't trapped. She was participating, willingly, even manipulating.
That's the core of his argument. He even claims she deliberately emasculated Diddy about his penis size. Says he saw it himself, observed it was not big.
Okay, this paints a very, very different picture. And what about Diddy's role in these freak-offs, according to Dave? Cassie described him orchestrating them, filming. Dave calls him a voyeur.
Yeah, a voyeur.
Yeah.
Dave claims Diddy was often just watching, sometimes even competing with Dave for Cassie's pleasure, even though Diddy was paying Dave to be there.
Competing? How?
He describes Diddy jumping on Cassie right after she'd climax with Dave, trying to make her orgasm again immediately.
Okay, that's bizarre. And there were other details, right? Something about baby oil.
Ah, yes, the baby oil. Dave brings this up, saying the excessive amount they used actually made sex impossible for him to enjoy.
Impossible? How so?
He claims it made Cassie's vagina, his words, looser than it needed to be, and it apparently prevented him from reaching orgasm for days sometime.
For days.
Yeah, he said it was incredibly frustrating. Said he'd sometimes leave just to find other women to have sex with so he could climax.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And other unusual requests or acts?
He mentions Cassie allegedly asking him to urinate in her mouth.
What?
Yeah, she says he refused. Says she explained she liked the warm feeling.
Okay.
And for about a year, he says, they would collect his semen in a cup.
Collect it.
Uh-huh. Cassie apparently told him later she drank it because Diddy liked watching her play with semen. Dave says he put a stop to that practice. After that, she'd ask him to just ejaculate inside her instead.
This is deeply strange and disturbing. And what about Diddy's interactions with Dave himself? Any allegations there?
Yes, and this is another really wild turn. Dave alleges Diddy actually tried to proposition him.
Didn't proposition Dave.
That's the claim. He describes being in a Miami penthouse. Diddy was apparently performing oral sex on Cassie.
Okay.
And Dave alleges Diddy kept sort of shifting his position, moving his anus into Dave's line of sight, trying to entice him into a sexual act.
He tried to get Dave to engage with him while he was with Cassie.
According to Dave, yes. He also says Diddy asked him point blank if he was gay, and then offered him money to shut up about it when Dave got angry at the proposition.
Offered him hush money.
Apparently so.
Mm-hmm.
But despite all this, all these shocking claims, Dave maintained something crucial.
What's that?
He insists Diddy never forced Cassie to have sex with him, with Dave.
Never forced her, despite her testimony.
Dave's adamant. He says Cassie would be the one to signal readiness, telling Diddy, I'm ready. And Diddy would just respond, okay, you could start.
So consent, according to Dave, was always given by Cassie in those specific interactions.
In those interactions, yes. Now, he doesn't excuse Diddy's abuse overall. He's very clear. He says he physically saw Diddy assault Cassie at least 5 times.
He saw physical assaults.
Yeah, mentions a 1-2 punch, kicks, hair pulling. But he attributes that to Diddy being generally abusive and their relationship being, quote, toxic and drug-fueled. Not, he argues, because Diddy was forcing her to sex acts specifically with him.
That's a huge distinction he's making, especially given Cassie's narrative of forced participation.
It's a massive contradiction.
And it puts that infamous 2016 hotel surveillance video in a different light, too, doesn't it? The one where Diddy appears to grab, shove, drag, kick Cassie. Diddy even apologized for that one.
He did. Called his behavior inexcusable. But Dave, He has a totally different interpretation of that specific incident.
What does he say caused it?
He believes the argument wasn't about Cassie trying to escape forced sex. He thinks she was jealous.
Jealous.
Yeah, like she'd probably seen Diddy texting other women on his phone and confronted him about it. That's what Dave believes sparked that physical altercation caught on video.
And his evidence for that belief.
He points out that just weeks after that very public, seemingly traumatic incident, Cassie called him again. Called him to Miami for another freak-off.
Weeks later. Despite what happened in that video.
According to Dave, yes. Which for him contradicts the idea that the video incident was about her trying to flee sexual coercion. It presents a really stark contrast.
Okay, this raises huge questions about the legal strategy here. Dave is making these explosive claims. Does he intend to testify?
He explicitly says he plans to testify. For Diddy, essentially. To highlight Cassie's alleged complicity.
Testify for Diddy? But isn't he suing Diddy?
He is suing Diddy, yes. But his main target in terms of challenging the narrative seems to be Cassie. However, he claims his own lawyer, Tyrone Blackburn, has been stalling his efforts.
Stalling him? How?
He alleges Blackburn has, for example, prevented the release of his book, falsely claiming it had privileged notes in it.
Why would his lawyer do that?
Well, Dave claims the government, the prosecutors in Diddy's case, hasn't called him or other male escorts to testify. Why? Because Dave believes they don't want to hear testimony that contradicts Cassie's victim's story.
He thinks they're deliberately avoiding evidence that complicates their case against Diddy.
That's his assertion. He suggests they're only interested in convicting Diddy, and testimony like his would muddy the waters.
And this ties into another point he makes, right, about male victims.
Yes, exactly. He talks about feeling there's a lack of protection, a lack of consideration, really, for male victims in the justice system compared to female victims, especially in sex trafficking cases like this.
That's a significant point about potential biases in the system.
It is. And he connects it to the money, too.
Yeah.
He believes the Fed's real focus is seizing Diddy's fortune, which he estimates is around $400 million now.
$400 million. Hasn't it dropped?
Significantly, yeah. Dave claims it was closer to $1 billion. But legal fees, plus that reported $20 million settlement Diddy paid to Cassie early on, it's taken a huge hit.
And legal experts are weighing in on that too, aren't they? About Diddy potentially going broke.
Yes. One lawyer, Eric Faddis, was quoted saying there's a substantial chance Diddy could actually go broke. His whole business empire has crumbled.
Right. He lost Revolt TV, the Spirits brands. Sean John fashion is basically gone.
Pretty much vanished. His music catalog is still intact, apparently. But Faddis raises the question, does America have the stomach for a Diddy comeback, even if he's acquitted on some things?
That's a powerful question. It speaks volumes about public perception versus legal outcomes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Faddis emphasizes, an acquittal doesn't mean innocence in the public eye, especially not after everything that's come out.
So wrapping this all up, what does this deep dive into Dave's lawsuit really tell us? It seems like the Diddy-Cassie story is far more tangled and honestly darker than maybe we even realized.
You're definitely more intricate and definitely more contentious. Dave's account, whether you believe all the details or not, it throws a massive wrench into the widely accepted narrative.
Yeah, it really forces you to reconsider Cassie's role, not just as a victim, but potentially, according to Dave, as an active participant, even a manipulator in this alleged exploitation.
It's a fundamental challenge to how we often frame victimhood in these cases. It suggests the lines can be incredibly blurred, especially within these, complex, toxic dynamics involving power, money, drugs, and fame.
And it shines a really harsh light on the whole justice process, too, doesn't it? Accountability, who gets believed, the role of money. It's all incredibly complicated.
Massively complicated. And as these legal fights go on, you just have to wonder how much our understanding will shift again as more evidence or perspectives maybe come out. What stands out most to you in all this?
For you, listening, I think this deep dive is just a stark reminder, isn't it? The headlines rarely capture the full story. The truth, whatever it ultimately is usually way more layered, way more challenging than we might initially think. It really pushes us to keep asking questions, right? To look at things from multiple angles, even uncomfortable ones, and just stay open to the possibility that the reality is far messier than any simple narrative allows.
Yes. Only thing that I'm worried about, punch one of these pussy ass niggas in they mouth. Then they film and they'll upload it. Suckers do anything for that clout. They'll trick you out of your position if you ain't gained up and you ain't here watching out. Internet bloggers, internet gangsters, who the snitches? I can't tell. On the dead homies and enemies podcast, the only podcast that I won't tell. But I ain't tripping, I just pay attention to my own little business and I get the smell. I'm in another state, making another plate. Big plat place on my state. A plush hotel, just count the mail. I do the shit and I do